types of assessments we use should depend on our course goals. And when you're thinking about course goals, what I mean is, are you teaching an introductory or gateway course that is followed by some other courses that require the students know specific content? And if that's the case, exams may be the right way to go. If your course goals are more about using content to develop their critical reading and analysis skills, or their writing skills, or their presentation skills, then exams might be unnecessary. There are lots of ways for students to show you that they're learning and they're achieving your goals. And we don't have to choose exams just because that's what we're used to or what we had when we were young. So if we're going to talk about exams being one of the ways that you will assess, if you think like, yeah, it's content heavy and I've got to be sure they've mastered this material before we can move on, we want to examine some of the pros and cons that come with exams, and in particular, in light of being online. I should pause here and say, wave your arms, use the chat, yell at me and tell me to stop if you have questions, okay? I don't mind at all. Okay, so don't get me wrong. I do not think that all exams are bad, and I think there are good reasons sometimes to give exams. Excuse me. They are the standard in many, many fields, and they can be a really good way to find out and check in and find out if your students are learning the content that you're giving them. They also provide a way for you to assess their independent learning in a way that maybe problem sets where they could work with a tutor or you don't. For some fields, they're going to have exams to get into the next thing or do the next thing. So they can provide practice for those graduate or professional school exams. They require a lot of pre-preparation. And so they can help you assess whether or not your students are good at preparing for the big task, right? If there's something that has a date and they've got to do it, that big task, sometimes it causes a lot of anxiety. It can be quite stressful, but it is a skill and you can see how they do with that skill. It's also a fine assessment for overall seeing if they learned content. Weird thing, some students are used to exams and they like exams. So one of the reasons people use exams is because students like it. So there might be good reasons. There are pros for exams. Some of the cons for exams are that they emphasize skills and memorization. Of course, this depends on the type of exam you give, but fact-based exams favor students who are good at remembering facts. This is the same advantage many of our students have on the SATs. It rewards a specific type of learning, and it often is at the detriment to other types of learning. So it's important to consider, is your exam really giving everyone the fair shake? Because exams are often fact-based, people feel like they require proctoring, because some facts are just easy to look up. So just to make it clear, the CTL has stated over and over again, there are no good surveillance softwares and we do not support any of them. Those surveillance softwares require students to give up autonomy of their own computers. They have serious privacy issues, and they broadcast, in addition to all of those other issues, they broadcast a message of distrust to your students. Remember, your students are mostly teenagers. And if they already think you don't believe in them and that you think they're cheaters, they have that attitude of, well, why not? Now that we're online, there's unique inequities in giving an exam. If you give an exam in your classroom and everybody can start at the same time and they all have the same environment and you end it at the same time, they're not dependent on things like good Wi-Fi, quiet spaces, a distraction-free environment, which we can give them on campus. Right? And so now that our students are at home, a lot of these issues are happening for a lot of our students, and it makes it really hard to do this fairly. It doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means it's more that we really do have to take into account. This is just one more way that we can reproduce the inequities that our students are feeling with this online access stuff. Okay, so if you don't do exams, what else could you do? What else might effectively work for your course? One favorite for people who need fact-based content is short quizzes. If you give a lot of quizzes that help them build that information, you get that same desired effect. Did they learn the content? and you don't have the large anxiety of a test. And it's interesting, even calling it a quiz instead of a test actually psychologically changes their attitude towards it. But really, it's about the points you give, right? So if you give a number of shorter assessments that have less points, they don't stress out as much. Reflections. Different kinds of reflections on the reading and lectures can assess student engagement with your course material. So those reflections can be that 2-minute free write at the end of class. They can be a more of a bigger assignment, right? Like we just covered this content, this unit, write a 2-page, what did you learn? What are you still confused about? Asking them some specific questions about the depth to see, do they overall grab your content? And then blog posts have become more and more popular, discussion boards. People use all kinds of different ones that we have either linked to our course management, or people are really into Slack. This is another way that students can show their engagement. And it is a way that you can be really transparent, because you can ask the key questions on these blog posts and ask them to reflect on a particular thing. And that could be a big topic, or that could be a small one, right? You can ask a small thing where they're answering regularly. So you're helping them know they need to be learning this content, they need to be engaging with it, but it doesn't have to be a high stakes assessment. Okay, now, if exams are not the best choice, I'm going to say a little bit more about small stakes assessment. So those small assignments with less points can be great for scaffolding. They can help students, like they need to learn this, and then they're ready for this next thing, and then they're ready for this next thing. Group projects tend to require the synthesis of a lot of content, so they actually engage those higher order learning skills. They're also good if you are teaching upper division courses and they need to learn to work together. Let's say you've heard all of this and you've thought about these things and you go, I still need to give exams. And I think that's fine. We still need to give exams. I love the idea of lots of small quizzes, but nobody can adopt that now. We're halfway through the semester, so that's not a great solution. So if exams are the best assessment, or it's an assessment you really need to do, you're going to give a final, how do you implement these assignments online like a pro, right? There's a lot of pitfalls, like skip what whether or not exam's the right thing to do. If you're going to do an exam, there's some things we really got to think about. And the reason I know how to think about these is because I've made all the mistakes in the last 2 semesters, so I can share with you. I'm getting better though. I'm going to be really good at this if we stay online. So there's some different types of online exams. In my black quadrant, I talk about the time take home, right? So a student downloads that from an email or your Sakai or Canvas site at whatever time, and you tell them how long they have to work on it and when they have to submit it by. Right? So maybe you're still giving an hour-long exam, but you're saying you download it whenever it's convenient for you, you spend an hour, time yourself, and you upload it. There are also ways through Sakai quizzes to do that sort of thing. I believe Gradestroke can let you do that. It's a little different. And I don't know Canvas at all, but I'm sure they have something like Sakai quizzes. So that's a particular way that you can do it. Another is the untimed take-home. So in the untimed take home, you're really just giving them an exam and you're saying, go at it. Spend as little or as long as you want, and it's due by this date.